Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I am 𝗗𝗲𝗏 and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out and take action towards the next level of your life. I am interviewing leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week, every Monday and Thursday. In today's show, I am delighted to speak with 𝗃𝗃. Dennis, you are a certified life coach specializing in addiction recovery, alcoholism and life mastery. You have gone from rock bottom to the top, back to the bottom, nearly dying many times and back up to the top again. You are also a motivational speaker, a best-selling author and a fellow podcaster, host of the Funky Brain podcast. You have been clean and sober since 2003 and your mission is helping others kick their addictions and master their lives. Dennis, welcome to the show. It's my real pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you so much, man. It's a real pleasure to be here and to hopefully help a few folks along the way.
I hope so. I think addiction is one of those topics that affect many people's lives, and I'm looking forward to hearing your insights. Shall we start with your journey, Dennis? So can we start with you giving me a key defining moment in your life's path?
Yeah, I mean, like if I go all the way back, you know, a lot of the reasons that people drink is because they don't like to feel. Right. And if I go all the way back to when I was like 5 years old, I can remember I was already at that point full of fear, insecurity, uncertainty, resentment, all these things that really destroy people. I already had them at 5 years old. And then you fast forward to 15 years old and I took my first drink and I could feel it going down my body. And I was like, wow. And I was like, I don't have to feel that way anymore. I don't have to feel anything harmful anymore. And it just it was like a relief. And I think that it's a common story for a lot of people. You know, a lot of people have some sort of abuse or some sort of trauma in their lives where they just don't want to feel that. And alcohol, drugs, food, porn, shopping, all these are all addictions that, you know, they're distractions from feeling. And, you know, in the case of alcohol, it can really take you into a deep, dark spot. Same with drugs. Anything really can, you know, and, you know, Buddha said 2,500 years ago, it's like 3 things can't be hidden long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. You know, you can't hide from these things forever. And the longer you try, the deeper down the hole you go. And then life ends up becoming really hard, meaningless. And, you know, from the other thing is that your emotional growth stops when you start drinking the way that I did. So I was 15 years old, fast forward, you know, and in the beginning, don't get me wrong, there were some fun times, which is why I kept drinking. I'm like, this is fun. You know, all of a sudden I was like better looking. I danced better. I can talk to girls. I felt better about myself, like all these things. And that went on for a while too. And then I started getting in trouble. And, you know, I didn't get in trouble every time I drank, but every time I got in trouble, I was drunk. Right. And it's a common story. Same with drugs, smoking weed, whatever, you know, that partying lifestyle. And I stopped doing well in school. I stopped, you know, just doing well in life. And then you fast forward another 15 years or so, I was 31 years old, but I had the emotional brain of a child because I never learned how to cope with life. And, you know, that's the reason a lot of people fail in sobriety and recovery is because, well, one, it's hard, right? It's difficult. And the other thing is like, I don't have the coping skills. So sure. And this is common. You'll hear this all the time. People are like, I'm going to stop drinking or smoking or doing whatever it is I'm going to do. And then the next day life kicks you in the gut.
When was that point that you realized that there is a serious issue there and I need to do something about it?
You know, it was probably early 20s when I started getting in trouble. When I was in over 20 drunken car accidents over my drinking and drugging career. Who you see is not who I used to be. And, you know, in my very early 20s, 20, 21, 22 years old, I started getting in lots of trouble. But I was able to convince the therapists and the psychologists and the courts that I was just a social drinker, party guy that took it a little too far sometimes. But I was only lying to myself.
And what happened in 2003, which was the year where you have been sober since? I'm looking for a milestone, something that really made you click and take that decision that that's it, never again, and change the path of your life.
Sure. So if we go back to 15 to 31 years old, that's almost 16 years of really hitting it hard. Financial heartache. I was 70 pounds heavier than I am now. I lost my jobs. I smelled. I mean, my whole life really fell apart. There was really nothing left. And, sadly, that's what it takes for a lot of people to change. You really just have to hit what they call rock bottom.
Rock bottom.
Right. And, the thing with rock bottom is that there's a trap door. You can always go deeper and deeper and dig deeper down into that hole. And on April, well, let's go back a little bit. So on November 15th, 2002, I got in a really bad car accident here in Colorado. I was driving down from the ski mountains, which is pretty high up there, and there's a lot of windy, steep roads coming down. And I rolled my truck 3 times doing 75 miles an hour. Luckily, I landed on my tires and I didn't die for some reason, but I had blood coming out of my head and I was a real mess. And I had a job at the time I was proud of, working for this company. And then eventually I lost that job due to that accident and due to that I couldn't stop drinking. And so on March 27th, 2003, I got fired from that job, and they gave me a severance package and commissions, like all this stuff. So I went on a bender just trying to kill myself with drugs and alcohol for the next 10 days. And the problem was I kept waking up every day. So on April 8th, 2003, my girlfriend at the time came into my apartment that morning, and I had been up for days. And I passed out in my clothes. I peed my pants. I was like at the end, and that's rock bottom. And at least it was for me. And she got me into a rehab. She goes, this can't work anymore. And I just started crying. And I said, I can't stop. And she got online and she found me a rehab center nearby. And I was in there 2 days later. That was April 10th, 2003. And I've been sober ever since.
Awesome. Yeah. And I want also to ask, and then I'm going to ask you about your experience in recovery, but from this roller coaster up and down that you had that period of time, what's one key learning that you have had, if I were to ask you? The going up, going down, and over again.
In sobriety? In the last 17 years, you mean?
Give me one key learning in sobriety, and then I'm going to come back to that. The key learning I meant in the roller coaster of going up and down as before you stopped drinking. That was my initial question.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, there were so many along the way on both sides. And like it's hard to even pinpoint one. I mean, when you read my intro, it's like from the bottom to the top, back down to the bottom. A common misconception people have is that when you stop drinking, that life just kind of opens up, rainbows and unicorns, make lots of money, perfect relationships, and everything's perfect, and I don't have to worry about life anymore. But that's totally not true. You know, life keeps coming at you. And that's why we drank, because I didn't know how to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
So over the years, I started a business. I made a lot of money. It became real successful in that business,
Mm-hmm.
and it changed my life forever. And then I lost that business,
Mm-hmm.
and I went from the top down all the way to the bottom, as low as you can go. And I spent years trying to rebuild that. It was really hard for me because at that time, I'm 48 years old now. At that time, I was 39, and I had life all figured out. And then I had it taken away. And that was one of the hardest emotional things that I had to deal with. And then I'll tell you another one right now. I'm going through a heartache. You know, I just lost an 8-year relationship, and I'm about 4 months into it now. And this, I would say, has been the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life. It's the right thing. We weren't happy, and it was sad. And it was a loving relationship, but we were just unhappy. And wow, like I don't remember the pain of getting sober 17 years ago because it's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it was painful.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't physically remember that. But I'll tell you, this, like 4 months ago, was awful. And you definitely don't want to have to go through this type of heartache too many times in your life. But what I did was, I'm getting through it. You know, and I didn't have to drink or mask my feelings. I feel them all the way through. I learn my lessons, I process them, and then I move on and, you know, build my business. I focus on family, on helping other people, and on growing.
Thank you for your, being vulnerable and sharing that with me. There are two things that come to mind based on what you've already said. I will start with one which is maybe in some people's minds is a misconception, because when they hear the word addiction, they think of a substance like alcohol, cigarettes, drugs. But you already mentioned that addiction is much more than that. It's behaviors. It could be shopping, porn, overeating, and all those things. So can you expand a bit on this? Like what is addiction, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's an awesome question. And there's so many addictions. The number one addiction, and the reason my relationship ended, was codependency.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't want to be alone.
Mm.
You know, it seems so much easier to go out. I don't want to sit by myself with my thoughts and my feelings, and I need somebody to share my life with. So what happens when you have that mindset and you're not happy with yourself, you don't love yourself, respect yourself, care for yourself, how can you possibly share all that with another person? Like we really need to be content, happy, and loving ourselves. Then we can find somebody to share that with who is also complete, or as complete as possible, right? We're all just works in progress. So people turn to these relationships, and when you're lacking like that, you tend to draw in other people that are also lacking, and then you have two codependent people, and the relationship doesn't go well. And it's common, and 90% of relationships are really have some form of that going on, which is why there's a lot of unhappy people. And so from there stems all sorts of addictions, right? So I'm unhappy by myself, so I got into this relationship. Now I'm unhappy in the relationship, so I'm going to drink, smoke, watch porn, do drugs, and eat chocolate and gain weight. And it really, these things are distractions, right? They're distractions from not wanting to feel. And everybody associates it, like you said, with substance, alcohol, drugs, because those actually take you out. You check out. Like I can get drunk, not have to feel anything for 6 hours plus, and then I get to fall asleep, and then I don't have to feel anything for the whole day. I mean, that just, you can check out. But really, I mean, you can get into shopping, you know, spending money that you don't have. Now you're building debt, all to avoid this problem. So what happens is the addiction, the drugs, the alcohol, all these things aren't the real problem. It's what I'm using to cope with the real problem. sometimes it's these behaviors and beliefs in our subconscious mind that we've had for 20, 30, 40 years. Something that happened in our childhood that we don't even realize had an effect on us, such a profound effect on us. So the good news is we can really go back and find that and reprogram our subconscious mind. But it does take work. It takes time, commitment, effort, and usually an accountability partner, which is why I have a job, because I coach people through these types of things. It's almost impossible to do it on your own, to identify and eradicate that type of thinking from those old hurts, those old beliefs, and those behaviors.
Thank you. There is, and it's fascinating what you, everything that you've said points to me to the same direction that the addictions are a coping mechanism to avoid some uncomfortable or emotion, some unease, and it's in a way it's a very poor way to handle emotions. And I know I can relate, and I bet many people can relate to that. It's you use the phrase check out, and that's, I've never heard of that description before, but it's so true. It's checking out, and in a way it's an easy way out, because no one, in most cases, no one ever taught us how to cope with our emotions. So we're left alone with something that is affecting our whole body, and we don't know what to do with it, and it feels uncomfortable, and we try to shut it out, really. So you mentioned accountability, reprogramming subconscious mind. Can you give me some more information about how someone who has or recognizes they have an addiction and they want to do something about it, what's the first step really to take in order to start working to break it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the first step is always like admission. I need to admit that there's a problem. You can't solve a problem you can't admit exists. I talk about this extensively in my book, Funky Wisdom. And in my book, I created this how approach. And how, it's an acronym. It stands for, because people say all the time, how do I become sober? How do I become successful? How do I have better relationships? How do I become healthy? HOW stands for honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. So first I need to be honest. I need to say, hey, things aren't going well. Something's wrong. I have an alcohol problem, drug problem, porn problem, shopping problem, eating problem, whatever your problem of the day is. And then you have to admit that and reach out for help. Next, I have to be open to a new way of living, because the way I'm living isn't working. And then I need to become willing on some level. Now, I've actually heard something interesting lately, which kind of contradicts some of my opinions, but, and I'll bring it up in just a second. But, you know, when I say you have to be willing to do things differently, you know, it's like nothing changes if nothing changes. So if I keep doing the same thing and over and over, I get the same results. What I heard, it was really interesting, and this comes from my coach, who is my mentor. He's amazing, but he said that we don't have to be willing; we just have to do the work. You know, like there's days that we don't feel like going to work or doing whatever it is that we do, but we just have to do it and get through it. So I could see it from both sides. I mean, at some point, even if you don't want to do it, you just do the work, but you have to be willing to change. So I don't know. But the point is like the first step you need to do is first I admit there's a problem. And then I have to ask somebody for help, because my best thinking got me where I am right now. Me trying to figure out life without the skills that I needed to do that got me where I am, which is hurt, broken, beaten, sad, angry, resentful, depressed, whatever your feelings are. So once I can reach out for help, and then I can trust somebody else's point of view, somebody else's program that has worked in the past. And then I have a chance of changing. And then when you talk about reprogramming the subconscious mind, I mean, this is a extensive topic. We could spend the next, hour on this, but
yeah, the
brief summary is when we go into our subconscious mind, which runs 80 to 90% of all of our activity, by the way, our conscious mind says, look, this is my to-do list. This is what I need to do today. These are my goals. This is what I need to do to be successful, happy, and healthy. And my subconscious mind says, let's go shopping or let's go get a beer. And that's where you end up because your subconscious mind drives the bus, right? So your subconscious mind got there by doing these things over and over and over again every single day for years or even decades. So in order to reprogram the subconscious mind, it requires work and dedication and commitment and doing things differently, the things I don't want to do over and over and over, day after day for an extended period of time. The good news is, you know, I always say it's 100 miles into the woods and it's 100 miles back out. But the good news is that the journey back out of the woods, it doesn't have to take as long or be as painful, right? You just have to get with somebody who can give you the right guidance in the right direction. And then what we'll do is we'll start identifying the real problem. We'll choose a goal to focus on, which in this case, like what we're talking about is our emotional well-being, sobriety, you know, overcoming addictions, whatever our addiction is. And then we create action steps on a daily basis to reprogram our subconscious mind. And that comes in the form of reading, writing, meditating. Meditating, not an option. We all need to do that. We need to calm our minds down. Our minds are the source of all our problem. Thus the name of my podcast, the Funky Brain Podcast. My brain will take me on journeys all over the place. And I just need to get present again. So that's how we reprogram our subconscious mind. That is the 30-second version of all that. You know, we can go as deep as you want into it, but you know, you have to make a start and you have to be committed to doing things differently. And then you're going to get different results and it works. And I've had massive success with that.
Thank you. And, you know, there are so many fascinating topics appearing now. And, yeah, it's easy to go through, you know, talking about reprogramming the subconscious, which I love this topic, but I will leave that maybe for another conversation because it's such a big thing. I will ask a couple of more things about addiction in particular because I have the questions myself and I think it's many people will relate. One is regarding alcohol in particular. Obviously there is the all or nothing approach. I either drink or I don't drink at all. What are your thoughts on that? Is there a middle way? Is there something that so-called social trigger, or is it it's the only way to deal with his addiction, to stop altogether forever?
That's a great question. It's a controversial topic. It really gets into self-love and self-care. And this is my approach to it. I started my sobriety and recovery in AA. I did it for years. I did all of the service work, all of the programs. I went some days in the beginning to 4 meetings a day. I had to redo my whole life and it was really painful. It's hard to grow up in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, so I needed that guidance. What they tell you there is that you're an alcoholic, you're going to be for the rest of your life. Keep coming back or you're going to drink again. And, you know, I lived on that, in that realm for a really long time. My answer, the short answer to that is no, I can't ever drink again. You know, one of the things we say is you can't make a cucumber out of a pickle, right? Remember, this is an emotional problem. Like I'm drinking because I want to numb out. This isn't a physical thing. And if we're people that are listening to this, people that have admitted they're addicts, alcoholics, whatever, they're seeking help, they're in an AA meeting, they know there's a problem. Remember, we have to reprogram our subconscious mind, our thinking, and come to grips with the fact that I can't drink well because I've tried it. I've tried to have a glass of wine. I've tried to have a beer. I never had anything, right? I had 8-ball, right? I had a bottle of whiskey. I had 3 packs of cigarettes. I had a quarter ounce of weed. Like I never had small amounts of everything. I can't moderate. And let's get back into my original response was, this goes to self-care. So if my goal, this is why we need to clearly define our goals. What direction do we want to go in our life? Once we define that, we have to say, okay, these are the steps I'm going to take to get me here, which in this case is sobriety, health, well-being. So does drinking serve me in that respect?
Yeah.
And the answer is no, right? If you can safely and honestly answer yes to that question, that I'm trying to become more happier, healthier, successful, have better relationships, love myself more, respect myself more, and still drink moderately, try that. I challenge you to try that.
Okay.
And you're going to find the answers to that question yourself. It just doesn't work. That's been my experience. I've never seen it proved otherwise. So the short answer is no, I can't ever drink again. And nobody who's ever tried that before, at least who's crossed over that line,
okay,
has ever.
Dennis, wait, what is that line? I wanted to ask you about that line. Is there a clear border, a clear definition of that line that you cross over, or is it subjective?
It's subjective. You know, like I just told you my story, which was really deep and damaging. Like I was a crazy maniac skier, chef, party guy, and I lived that lifestyle, you know, playing pool in the bar, and like that was my life. But I've met people that have been sober for decades. This one woman in particular always stands out, and I tell this story all the time. She is sober for decades now because she drank 2 shooters of vodka every day. 2 little shooters. You know, it's like 3 ounces of vodka. And I was like, that was like breakfast for me. I didn't understand that, but to her it was a problem.
Okay.
So when you talk about the line, I don't remember, because I met her years ago. I think the problem was like she hit her kid after she had her 2 little shooters of vodka, and that crushed her. Yeah. That was the line that she had to cross. Yeah. For me, it was like I drove my car into a house. I drank for 10 years after that. Like a normal person who can drink normally would say, you know what? I just drove my car into a house. I should probably not drink anymore. And they'll stop drinking. You know, I can go back and say, just as I was just saying, I never had a beer or a drink or a cocktail or any of those things. I started drinking heavily right away. So I crossed that line when I was 15, 16 years old. And it's just my opinion and my opinion based on experience and what I've seen in recovery and as a counselor and a professional. I've never seen anybody go back over that line and again drink like a normal person ever. It's all emotional stuff. So for me, that line was as a teenager, and it happens to different people at different times, but I don't think, like I said, you can't make a cucumber out of a pickle.
Yeah. I don't know, you probably are familiar with Alan Carr's work with quitting addictions. He has a very good analogy. He talks about the pitcher plant, where the insect starts getting the honey from the plant without realizing that it leads to its end, because the plant will suck it in. And he uses that as a metaphor for drinking alcohol.
Another analogy you always hear is like, 1 is too many and 1,000's not enough.
That's right.
So if it's not the 1,000th drink that kills me, it's the first one.
Yeah. Dennis, there is also one other aspect of addiction that I want to ask your thoughts about, and that is addiction to cigarette smoking. From your experience, do you think that this is like any other addiction, or does it have any unique characteristics as an addiction that needs to be dealt with in a different way?
Well, I think fundamentally it goes back to a lot of the same principles. I think that there's really, it's an emotional problem, but also a big physical addiction. And when you talk about cigarettes nowadays, it was really interesting. I was just talking with somebody yesterday about this. like the cigarettes, the tobacco nowadays is really, it's been altered to become even more addictive. So there are definitely there's definitely a huge chemical addiction going on there. I mean, I have a client, and this guy is 75 years old, and 12 years ago, he had lung cancer, surgery, chemo, radiation, and he still smokes. And, you know, he's been smoking for 60 years. So it's really hard to go back in and reprogram that. I can't say that it's different. I quit smoking 16 years ago. I smoked for 10 months after I quit drinking. And I can say that I think it was harder than stopping drinking. But I still think the underlying principles are still the same. You know, I'm still, like, if you think about how chronic smokers are smoking, you know, if they're smoking every half hour or hour, they get to check out for 5 minutes every half hour or hour. It's the same thing with any other addiction. I get to check out for a little bit frequently, so I don't have to take care of my responsibilities, you know, so I don't have to talk to this person on the phone, so I don't have to do this task at work, so I don't have to blah, 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 fill in the blank. So I think fundamentally, it's the same thing. It's an addiction. But sadly, I mean, it's very chemically addictive. I'm not taking anything away from that. It's very difficult. I think things like the patch and the gum and those things, those are just Band-Aids. We really need to do the work. We need to do the emotional work. We need to do the writing, the reading, the meditating, the prayer. I need to change my life. We say in recovery, we only have to change one thing, and that's everything. I need to change everything. The people I hang out with, you know, if I have triggers, I mean, I'm a tough coach. The way that I approach things, this isn't like law of attraction, just think positive and your whole life changes kind of crap. You know, you definitely need to think positively in your life and carry that into your life, but you need to do the work. You need to work hard. You know, this isn't sit around and envision $1 million checks coming in the mail and then get stoned and play Xbox. That's not how it works. You know, sit around, be positive, and you want to envision those $1 million checks coming in that car and that house, but then you need to go work towards it.
Absolutely. And
it's the same thing with addiction. It's like I sit here with clients and they're like waiting for the magic pill. And you know what? Even if I had that magic pill, you wouldn't want it, because whatever struggle you're going through right now, if you don't learn how to cope with that and deal with it and get through to the other side with it, it's coming back in a year or in 5 years or in 20 years. And if you don't know how to handle it, you're not going to know how to handle it then either.
Yeah, there's that phrase that life will keep on throwing at you the same issue over and over again until you actually learn how to deal with it. So you're never going to get away from it before you learn how to cope with it. Dennis, there is one other thing I wanted to ask you, which is part of your coaching, and that is life mastery. So obviously, again, that's a very big topic, but I want you to, first of all, briefly give me your definition of how do you mean when you say life mastery, what exactly do you mean?
Well, we can use the addiction as a great example, but it's really mastering your goals. It's really staying focused and achieving your goals and dreams. And it's funny that you bring that up, because we're putting together another webinar for a few weeks from now, and it's called Focused and Fearless. You know, how to crush your goals. And when you talk about life mastery, we're talking about achieving the things in our life that we haven't been able to do. And for like our discussion today, we're talking about addiction, but it's just, you know, starting that business, growing that business, having better relationships, finding the love of your life, or improving your current relationship, improving your health, lose that 30 pounds, run that marathon, do the things in life that you want to do, and getting laser focused on what it is you want to do and how to do it. And it comes from clearly defining your goal, and only one at a time. We need to work on the one goal at a time, one major goal at a time. Like, we need to take care of our responsibilities. We need to go to work. We need to manage our relationships. We need to exercise, eat well. those are things that we have responsibilities to do as human beings if we want to, move forward in life. But we only want to be working on one major goal at a time. What happens is, here's an example I like to use, is New Year's resolutions. Here's New Year's. Here's our 5 resolutions. I want to do this, 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 and this. So there's these 5 things. And then 2 weeks later, we're overwhelmed. We're like, how can I possibly lose 50 pounds, run a marathon, grow my business, improve my relationship, and stop drinking? And then screw that. So 2 weeks later, all New Year's resolutions are gone. Mm-hmm. And then we go through the year struggling and wishing and trying and buying self-help books and watching this TV show and doing this and listening to this podcast. And then next New Year's Eve, guess what?
Same thing.
Same 5 New Year's resolutions every year. So what happens is, it sounds great to say, I'm going to achieve these 5 things, but it never works, at least at a high level. We never get all 5 of those things done at a high level. So we really need to focus on one thing at a time. And then from that one thing, we create action steps to get that one thing done, one at a time. And we always want to be working on one thing, one major goal. When that one thing's done, we work on the next one thing. This is how you master your life. This is life mastery. And sometimes that one thing is money. Sometimes it's weight loss or improving your health on some level. Sometimes it's an emotional goal, forgiving somebody who hurt me 20, 30 years ago, so who sexually abused me, or somebody who beat me in a relationship or something like that. Everybody's one thing is different, but it's about identifying it, mm-hmm. being crystal clear on what that is, and then working on getting that done on a daily basis. Because our subconscious mind, this is great. I'm going to get excited. I'm going to get this goal done. And then we're working towards it. And then a week or 2 later, our subconscious mind takes over again. We're like, wow, we're doing pretty good. Let's go have a drink. Let's go have some cake. Let's go, watch Netflix for 4 hours again and not get our goals done. Right. So life mastery, the key to that piece right there, because I know everybody listening understands what I just said, is accountability. That's where a coach comes in. That's where a coach, mentor, therapist, accountability partner, whatever you want to call it, comes in. Because otherwise, our subconscious mind takes us out of the game, and we just keep going down that path. And then next New Year's Eve, same thing. That's life mastery.
Thank you for that. That's fascinating. One more thing I wanted to ask Dennis, and then I will ask you some quick fire questions to start wrapping things up. But tell me, you mentioned, you talk about inner peace and making peace with your past and putting it behind you. So what's one piece of advice you would give someone to start working towards inner peace and making peace with whatever has happened in their past?
Well, it's the same thing as earlier. Like, one, I need to admit that there's something keeping me out of the game. Mm-hmm. And now, because once I admit it, now I can do something about it.
Yeah.
I can't solve a problem I can't admit exists. And then it's the same thing. Reach out for help. And when you do that, and I just mentioned it here, like with that emotional goal, it's like forgiving somebody from the past. Forgiveness is a huge piece of the puzzle. And forgiveness is the foundation for every religion in the world, for every spiritual practice, and for every concept that we're trying to teach her. And sometimes it's, I have to forgive a family member who abused me, or I have to forgive this or that. And a lot of times I have to forgive myself for being human and for making mistakes and for saying that stupid thing to this person 30 years ago, or whatever it is. Forgiveness. We really need to focus on forgiveness, because like I just said, like a key component when you talk about inner peace, happiness, success, whatever it is self-love, self-care, and self-respect. If I can't forgive myself, if when I wake up in the morning, I look in the mirror and start crying, we need to work on that. What's the cause of that? Why can't I look in the mirror and smile and love myself? So forgiveness is really a key component there for that inner peace. when I'm, if you go back to the AA program, the 12-step program, they focus a lot on resentments. Resentments will kill you. There's no justified resentments ever for any reason. And people will sit here and justify it. Oh, my uncle sexually abused me. And now there's some pretty awful stuff out there to deal with. Really awful stuff. And sometimes it takes a while to get through this stuff. But until I do, I am not going to master my life. I am not going to have that inner peace and that freedom that we see on TV, that we read in novels about these perfect lives. You can get it. It's all achievable, but it requires work. It requires work. It requires forgiveness. And that forgiveness comes from doing the work. And people are like, what's this magic program? And, we'll sit and we'll meet, and I give a lot of homework. It's a lot of writing, because in the writing, remember, we have like 60 to 80,000 thoughts every day. That's almost one thought per second. I need to slow my mind down. Writing slows my mind down. Not only does it slow my mind down, but it makes these things tangible. Now we're getting some goals here, some concrete things to work on. Do you know what else writing does? It actually reduces stress. Rather than tossing these thoughts around in my head, I put it down on paper. I either identify something I need to solve, or I realize that it's not that big of a deal. Either way, it calms me down. So this is the work. So let's read something instead of looking at what somebody's political opinion is on Facebook. Let's meditate. Let's calm our minds down. Let's write. Let's exercise. Let's eat well, because our physical health, our gut health, the food that we put into our bodies determines the way that our day goes. If we're eating a lot of heavy, processed, sugary, salty foods, that's the way our day's going to go. Everybody's like, oh, I feel like crap. Well, what did you eat? Okay, well, don't eat that tomorrow. Watch how your day goes. Yeah. So eating that type of food takes you out of self-love, self-respect, and self-care. I'm not taking care of myself if I'm eating ice cream and cheeseburgers every day. There's a time for that. Don't get me wrong. Every once in a while, I say to people, and I was just in this, just do the next right thing. And when you get overwhelmed, heartache, addiction, like whatever it is that you're going through, and you don't know what to do, you just do the next right thing. Sometimes the next right thing is take a shower, put some clothes on, read something, calm down. Or sometimes it's like, go get some ice cream. There's a time and a place for that. The problem is when we start using that ice cream to check out.
Yeah.
And not learn how to deal with the feelings. But eventually we get there. It's just keep doing the next right thing.
Sure. And that's I think it's a very great takeaway from all this, that it's all we need to do is just focus on the next action. Yes, we can have the bigger picture in mind, but it's always one step at a time. That's a journey of 1,000 miles is always the next step and the next step. You can never go any other way.
It's true. Yeah.
And you said something about forgiveness, and which is great. And I think that forgiveness is always about ourselves. So even if you forgive someone else for what they done to you, you are the recipient of the forgiveness, not the other person, because the resentment that you said is what eats you. You think that if you resent someone else, it harms them, but it doesn't. You are the only person that gets poisoned by this constant, negative emotion. And forgiveness really relieves you of that. And no wonder that all religions talk about it. But,
and we have a specific forgiveness process that we use. And it comes, the first part of the process, it's a 4-step process. And the first part is really, first of all, we need to get the anger out. There's anger, there's sadness, there's resentment, there's rage inside of us, and that needs to come out. So we have a process for that. It involves a lot of writing to get all the anger out. Whoever that is towards, whether it's a person, place, a politician, a thing, whatever it is, we need to get that anger and the rage out. because we can't get into the soft stuff, the forgiveness and of that person and myself while there's all that rage there. So we have to get all that out. And that could take a couple of days, or it could take a couple of months of writing to get that out. And then we go into forgiving that person. And then we have to recognize what our part in that was. Because there's always a part. Even like when there's something horrible that you're like, how can I have a part in that? But there is a part. And then at the end, there's that, I fully forgive myself and I love myself. But it takes time to get to that point. And once you do that, the world opens up in ways that you wouldn't believe. When you're hurting and dark and in that place where you think it's never going to change, remember that it is going to change. You know, we can't stay on that trajectory forever. Science won't allow it. At some point, there has to be an upswing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't they sit in the darkness, and you can sit in it as long as you want. It's not until you reach out and start doing things differently that you're going to get out of that darkness. But we say, like, if you're going through hell, keep going. You know, you're going to get to the other side. The tough times don't last. Neither do the good times.
Absolutely.
Everything changes all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dennis. Let me ask you also some quick fire questions as well.
Okay.
So
it's early in the morning. It's like, I'm not sure how quick I'll be, but go ahead.
So what does personal development mean to you?
Personal development.
Yeah.
Well, it means to develop myself instead of staying stagnant, instead of, you know, being that unhappy person who's unsatisfied with where I am in life. It means to grow from that point. You know, same principles that we've been talking about this whole time. It's like, identify that this isn't going well. This isn't where I want to be, and then find a way through. In a lot of cases, it's reach out to somebody like me or you. I don't know what you do, but to a coach, a mentor, a therapist, a counselor, somebody who can help get you where you want to go. I was taught to have an expert in every area of my life.
Yeah.
So I'm not a lawyer. If I need to go to court, I need a lawyer. If I get sick, I need a doctor. I hate doing taxes. So every year I need an accountant to do that for me. And, you know, I don't know how to conquer my life on my own. So I have a coach, a mentor, an accountability partner in multiple areas of my life. And I think that that's a key factor in it. And that's what personal development is. It's like becoming better than I was yesterday. I was taught we always have to be pushing uphill. If we're not pushing uphill, we're sliding back downhill. There's no planing out. There's no like hanging out here. The misconception is, and people misunderstand when I say this, is that pushing uphill doesn't necessarily mean struggling. It just means trying to be better than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's personal development.
Thank you. And if you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, what's the one piece of advice you would give him?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I asked this question to a lot of my guests too. and I actually posted it on LinkedIn recently and getting other people's responses. And nobody asked me. It's really funny. You know, I think that what I would say is the same thing that I just said about, you know, if you're going through hell, keep going. It's like, stay the path, be who you want to be, not what the world's idea of who you're supposed to be is. You know, I think a lot of people get stuck in that. Remember, we live in this world where people are trying to fit into this mold that only very few are designed to be successful at.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we sit in the traffic to go to these jobs, to make the money, to pay the bills, and do it all over again every day. And we never get to that point where we see like that guy or that girl. How did she get there? Right? They're the 1%. I really think it's like, follow your heart and your dreams. Do what fills your soul, what feeds your soul. It took me a long time to find that. And during that time, I drank, I drugged, I ate, I was promiscuous. Like I was doing all these things to numb out because I didn't know how to get there. It took me a really long time to find what I do now feeds my soul. Mm-hmm. I wake up every day. I get to talk to people all over the world and work with them to help them improve their lives and not have to go to the deep, dark places that I went. But it took me years to figure that out. I'd say as an 18-year-old, I would say, Dennis, find what you want to do and go do that. Mm-hmm. And when times get tough, stay the course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your experience with asking this question to your guest is, but for me, I have found two realizations really. One is that the answers are profound, almost always. And the second is that the answers are very similar. It's so similar that if you strip out all the details, for me, the core truth, everyone gives the same advice to their older selves, which is it's something that I'm working as a concept, and it's I get that reinforced by 99% of the people I ask. They tell me the same thing in a different, expressed differently.
Well, I think that, that mass consciousness is a huge problem. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. Like, I was just talking to a lawyer, and he was miserable. Mm. And what he found out was that he was a lawyer for decades, very successful, made a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And but he was miserable. And what he found out was he was groomed for that job since he was 4 years old. And he had no choice but to do that.
Yeah. And
now, you know what he does? He's a coach.
Uh-huh.
And he's the happiest he's ever been in his life. Yeah. Because you have to do what fulfills you, not some pre-designed, preconceived notion of who you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
Because in a lot of cases, you're going to end up, if you don't get to that point of massive success, you're going to feel like a failure, because first of all, it's not filling your soul. And second of all, you're not getting to where you want to be. And mostly because it's not feeding your soul. Mm-hmm. And even if you make the millions of dollars, it's still not going to feel your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. And success, there is no success without fulfillment, Dennis. I mean, you can appear to be successful, but if inside you feel like you're rotting, that's not success at all. So
I agree.
Let me ask you a couple more then, now that you've warmed up.
Sure.
If you had a magic wand and you could change something in the world as it is today, what would you change?
I would remove politics. That's the
first time I hear that reply.
We remove politics. Remove it from the media. Remove it from, really our daily lives. Mm-hmm. I think that, politics and religion, they're really like the two biggest problems in the world when it comes out, all the wars, all the conflict, all the disagreements, the hatred, the anger, all stem around politics and religion. And it's fine to have your opinion. And we were taught when we were growing up, my guess is you're around the same age as me, is that we were taught to not talk about politics and religion. And so now, instead of not talking about it, we post it on social media for millions of people to see. Mm-hmm. It wasn't meant to be discussed and argued over at the level it is. At the end of the, I say the happiest people I know have completely removed politics from their lives. The news, I had a news app on my phone that I would look at in the morning. When you wake up in the morning and you grab your phone and look at what some politician somewhere is or is not doing for you, and none of them are doing anything for you, by the way. It's just marketing that makes you believe that they are either hurting you or helping you, and they're not. So you get attached to that, and you carry that into your day, and it makes you unhappy, angry, inconsiderate, whatever. It makes you be a less effective parent. They're the people driving down the road giving people the finger because they're angry. You know, you're doing that to yourself. Stop watching that stuff. If I could wave a wand, I would remove politics. That's what I would do.
I agree with you with the news 100%. I mean, I haven't watched the news in over 10 years now.
Yeah? Well, there's nothing good going on.
No, if there is, you won't find it in the news anyway.
No, it's not. Well, here's the thing. If something is really important, like let's take COVID, okay? Yeah. So you haven't watched the news in 10 years. Do you know about COVID?
Of course I do.
Sure.
I learn from it, but I choose how to get my information about it rather than being a passive receptor of whatever they want to, you know, project onto me. So
that's right. It's a big circus. It's a big show. That's what it is. Yeah. It's a show that everybody, they're putting on a show. At the end of the day, it comes down to dollars, right? If you read my blog article about politics, then I make money from advertisers. If you watch my news channel, then we make more money from advertisers. So they only report stuff dramatically to make you get emotionally involved so you continue to tune in. And you think that it either hurts you or helps you, and it's not helping you or hurting you as bad as you think it is. None of it is. All it is every country, every place has a political figure up ahead. They find the one that, you know, everybody has an issue that's close to their heart. This is what's going on with politics. Everybody has an issue that's close to their heart. And so they find a politician that supports that issue. And then they hate everybody else. That's what happens. So they support that one that supports that issue that's close to your heart. And then they don't like everybody else, even though they're not informed politicians themselves. It's like, let's just go have a nice day. Take care of yourself. Like, get back to self-love, self-care. Go for a walk. You know, are you ready to retire? If not, go work on that. You know, work on helping somebody or loving somebody better, loving yourself deeper. So I wish I had that magic wand. I would wave politics away.
Dennis, is there anything you were hoping I'd asked you today and we completely skipped it?
No, I think it's great. I think you do a great job. I enjoy talking with you. You have a pleasant presence. And I like that. It's very welcoming and comforting.
Thank you.
And I've enjoyed my time here.
I have enjoyed very much our conversations too. How can people find out more about what you do and how can they connect?
Sure. Well, you can get everywhere from my website, which is 𝗵𝗏𝗏.com. And the podcast is the Funky Brain Podcast. It's on YouTube because I do the video. It's on all the audio podcast networks, but it's Dennis Berry Funky Brain. YouTube is the YouTube handle. But again, you can get there from 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏.com. My book is on Amazon, Funky Wisdom, A Practical Guide to Life. But you can get there through the website too. Awesome. And you can schedule a call if you'd like. I have clients in the UK, in Australia, in India. I have clients everywhere. So we work via Zoom or, you know, technology is great. And
absolutely.
Reach out for a free appointment and we'll hang out and talk for a little bit. If you like that, we'll talk some more.
Awesome. Dennis, I really want to thank you very much indeed for this conversation because it's been illuminating, really, and I personally got many things out of it, and I really hope that the listener also gets, I always say, not many, if they get one thing out of the conversation and they take some action to change their lives, then my mission is accomplished. But yeah, for me as a host, I'm always intrigued and I want to learn, and it's been a completely intriguing conversation, so thank you very much for it.
Thank you.
Any last parting words?
No, just love each other. Have a better day today than yesterday, and if not, do something about it, change it. You can turn your day around at any time. You don't have to wait till tomorrow to start your day over. You know, start right now. Go go walk somewhere, get some sunshine for 2 minutes. You could start, reset.
Thank you for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe and review Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts, and also share this podcast with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to gain access to exclusive content while supporting this podcast, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpad. If you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you, or if you have any questions, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. Again, the link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/pdmgroup. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.